True Crime Society podcast contains adult themes and violence and is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. And if you'd like to skip the intro or move to any specific part of the podcast, please refer to the timestamps listed in the episode description. Thank you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the True Crime Society podcast with Stephanie and Olivia. We just recorded... Oh, wait. I didn't say the date. It's 10/24, October 24th, 2024, and close to Halloween. So we are going to do a Halloween episode today. We did just record an hour and 15-minute Patreon episode on Delphi, which Patreon episodes, I mean, they can go long, but usually around 40 minutes at the longest. So that was a lot.
Yeah,
a lot to talk about with Delphi.
Personal best.
Yeah, but a lot going on.
Yeah.
I've been having just like a shitty week. Again, I said this on Patreon not to be like, oh, Stephanie is a downer. I'm just having like a crazy week. I'm overwhelmed. I'm PMSing. I'm trying to I feel like I'm hanging on by a thread with life right now. Doing my best. So just bear with me today. I am feeling in better spirits now because as much as I complain, I do like recording and doing all this stuff. So I think I'm hanging in there.
Yeah.
When I just went and looked, because sometimes throughout the week I will write down little notes of things to maybe talk about on the podcast, because sometimes I have crazy days like today, and then by the time it's time to record, I feel so scatterbrained I can't even get with it. I need people to tell me their tips for overcoming phone call anxiety. This is my biggest crippling thing. And I think it's one of those things where I would be way too powerful if I could make a phone call. This is my Achilles heel. We had to have someone come look at our furnace because, like I said, it's getting colder here and our furnace is being kind of weird. Luckily, Mike called, but just the thought, I was like, okay, I have to call. I'm so scared. I'm so afraid. Why? Why am I afraid? Why am I scared? I will think about it for days. I'll be, oh my God, I'll just do it tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and I think about it and I think about it. And then I'm like, I can't do it. I'm too busy. I'll do it the next day. And it'll haunt me for a week. And sometimes I just won't do it. Why? Why?
So,
what are the tips?
I'm not scared of making phone calls. I just don't like to do it. So even I've been trying, we've got this event coming up where I need to book a restaurant. So I'm I could ring them because it's a group you have to ring that says, but then I'm I could ring them, but then I found their email. So I emailed them and then we're going back and forth. I will always
try for that.
And I'm this could be done in 30 seconds, but instead this is going on for days and days just because I don't want to ring them when it would make my life easier, but I still don't want to do it.
Yeah. I will always try to find an email any other way. And I know I have social anxiety. I've been diagnosed with, I was diagnosed with general anxiety disorder with OCD tendencies, if you couldn't tell. So I know it's just part of that, but it's weird because there's so many things I can do, but just certain things like that really set off my internal panic. Even I just can't do it. Even talking about right now, I feel distressed. And I can't even... The logical part of me is what's going to happen? Bitch, it's a phone call. You have a podcast. My job in the past used to be to answer calls for a doctor's office. What am I afraid of? And I think part of it is I don't like being put on the spot because I always like to have an answer or to research or to know what I'm going to say. I don't like feeling stupid. You know what I mean? If I'm going to a new restaurant, or something, I'm looking it up. I'm looking up the menu. I'm looking at pictures of the parking lot. I'm looking at pictures of the inside. So I know everything. I know where to go. So when I have to make a phone call, what if they ask me something and I don't know the answer? And then I feel stupid. And then I'm I don't know. I'm just a dumb idiot.
When I was at work the other day, this person's been emailing me. I'm not going to go into the politics of it, but it's an email that we've discussed at work and we're we'll just deal with it later. Everyone as a group has agreed to deal with this email later. She's emailed me about 5 times this week anyway. Then she rang me and it was so because I didn't know the number and I picked it up. And then she's like, hi, it's blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, hi. And then all of a sudden, I kid you not, because it was on my work phone, which is like run over like the internet. Like, I don't know. It's not like an actual phone line. It's like an internet phone. And then all of a sudden, like, I was like, shit. In my head, I'm like, I know why she's calling. I wasn't ready for this. And it just came out with like network unavailable and it dropped out.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my God, now I have to ring her back. She's going to think I hung up on her because she knows I'm avoiding her.
Oh no.
But I know. And then I was like, I said, oh, I'm so sorry. It cut out. And I could tell that she thought I just didn't want to deal with that at that time. So I called her back later. But it was really not me. That was an internet issue.
Oh my God.
Oh. Yeah, good timing, good but bad timing.
I was gonna say, why did you answer? But then you said it was the work phone.
It was my like desk phone, which it hardly ever rings, and I answered it. I just didn't, I saw the number, I didn't recognize it, so I picked it up, and she's like, "Oh hi," I'm like, "Oh my God, why?" I wish it came up with a name, like especially with an internet phone, it should come up with where not just the number, but where they're calling from.
Unless she blocked it on purpose or something.
Maybe. Anyway,
she knew you were avoiding her. That's like if I get a phone call and it's not a number I recognize, there's no chance in hell I'm answering it unless I'm like expecting a call or something. But absolutely not. For one, the amount of fucking spam calls and texts, especially during the election season, they're all texting me. Yeah. Apparently, like it's ridiculous. And calling, like, no way, not answering.
I do appreciate on the iPhone. I don't know if it's the same because I know you're on Android, but it comes up now with like possible spam or potential spam or something. So it gives like, obviously I know if someone's calling me from Egypt, I don't know anyone there. So, but it's a little handy feature that sometimes comes up.
Yeah, mine does that too. But it's like they don't always get it because spam callers, they like spoof numbers.
Yeah.
One thing my phone does too that's kind of cool is I can hit screen call. And so it'll answer it itself and it'll be like, hi, like this person's using Google whatever to screen their phone calls. Could you say what you're calling about? And I could see like the transcription. So then if it's like someone for real, they'll be like, oh, I'm calling from this doctor's office. And I could see that and then I could decide to pick it up. But usually when it's spam, they'll just hang up or you'll get like the recording that's playing of the spam. So that's a good feature.
I don't think Apple has that feature. That would be handy. Maybe they do and I just haven't turned it on.
Android's better. I've never had an iPhone. All right. Well, I mean, anything interesting or exciting going on with you or any anxieties you want advice on to talk about?
No anxieties, but I did have a cool thing this week. We went to see Olivia Rodrigo, which was very, very, very cool. Like I wasn't expecting much, I have to say. I'm like, this seems like a chore. And I can't remember which episode we spoke about it in, but I'm like, it's a Tuesday night. I have to drive
you were
to
dreading
Sydney.
it.
I'm like, oh, it's going to be a nightmare. But it was actually so good. Everyone I went with agreed that it was better than Taylor Swift, which I know might be controversial.
Those are fighting words.
But everyone I've spoken to also who has been to both shows said the same thing. Like it's very different. Like obviously it's in a smaller, like so this was in an indoor venue that was smaller. Obviously the production is nowhere near like what Taylor Swift does with the costumes and the sets and everything, but it was so much fun. Like she's such a good entertainer. She's so personable. She's so sweet. Like I hope she doesn't break my heart and turn out to be a massive crazy person, but she was lovely. It was so good. And we went, I didn't realize that when we went, it was the last night of her whole world tour. And she's only 21 years old. She did 95 shows around the world, which is crazy. But it was so good. So if you ever get a chance, I would highly recommend going to check her out. But yeah, just a fun little midweek thing. I feel like I've been playing catch up all week though, because that was Tuesday. It's now Friday. Wednesday was a write-off. I was exhausted. So anyway, I'm glad it's the weekend now here.
Sam, I can't wait. Before we get into the episode, we have a quick word from our sponsor, Uncommon Goods. If you want everyone on your list to be like, this is exactly what I wanted, you need to check out Uncommon Goods. They have scoured the globe for original, handmade, absolutely remarkable things that everyone on your list is going to love. I know personally, I love just browsing Uncommon Goods, just getting some ideas. Even if I have nothing to shop for, I'm like, let me just see what's on here because there's so many cool things. One thing that I do really want to get. I've been wanting it. I keep going back and looking at it. And I don't know why I don't just pull the trigger. I think maybe after this I'm going to. If you want to look it up, because you're also going to love it, Spotted Wellies garden ducks. They're these cute little wooden ducks with like little polka dot rain boots. Now that I have a house in an outdoor area, I could put these little ducks on my front stoop, on my back porch, in this garden that I'm trying to make happen. And they're going to look so cute. I'm honestly obsessed with them and I need to get them.
So cute and so quirky. When you shop at Uncommon Goods, you're supporting artists and small independent businesses. Many of their handcrafted products are made in small batches, so make sure you shop now before they sell out this holiday season. Uncommon Goods looks for products that are high quality, unique, and often handmade or made in the US. They have the most meaningful, out of the ordinary gifts anywhere. They even have gifts that you can personalize. So to get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/TCS. That's uncommongoods.com/TCS for 15% off. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary.
Okay, so we are going to be talking about a Halloween case today. Oh my God, we didn't even talk about this episode's going to come out on Halloween.
we didn't
even talk about Halloween anything. So this episode's going to come out on Halloween. That's all I have to say about it. But
we did ask on Patreon if anyone had any suggestions for cases that happened around Halloween. Like, we do like to, obviously this is a murder, so we're not making light of the situation, but it did happen on Halloween. It's a timely case to discuss, even though it's a little bit older. And this is a case I'd actually never heard of, which I feel like I have a pretty... I don't know a lot about every case, but I have heard of many cases.
Yeah.
So but I had never heard of this one, and it was a super interesting one. It was suggested by our patron, Ashley, and it did happen on Halloween night. So a very timely case this week.
Yeah, and parts of it do remind me and people in general of the Moscow case, parts of it. So you'll probably be able to pick up on which parts I mean as we go along.
I feel like, too, just as another coincidence, October 31st this year marks the 20-year anniversary of this case. So I feel like it will come up more in the media. So maybe, I feel like that always happens. You're like, I've never heard of this case, and all of a sudden I'm seeing it everywhere. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in the next week, or, when this is released, because it is an anniversary, a big anniversary for this case.
Yeah. All right. So this case was suggested to us by our Patreon subscriber, Ashley. So thank you.
There's no way to even imagine the ugliness and the brutality.
In California's beautiful Napa Valley,
The intruder went through the window, made his way upstairs.
Two roommates.
Oh my God, we got attacked.
Murdered.
I just picture him just raising up above her and just stabbing her.
Leslie.
Mazzara.
She wanted to grow up to be a teacher, a mother, a nurse, and Miss America.
Rose for a rose.
Adriane.
She was really at a very happy place in her life.
Who turned them both into targets?
Somebody must have seen something. Somebody out there knows something.
1,000 police interviews, 200 DNA samples.
I need to know what happened. Why?
One critical clue. The only thing more terrifying than the crime.
There's a major break tonight in a double murder that shocked the wine country.
Is the killer's identity.
Who was it? I was not at all prepared for the answer.
Nightmare in Napa.
So on October 31st, 2004, Leslie Ann Mazzara and Adriane Insogna were murdered in their home in Napa Valley, California. A third roommate lived with them, but they survived the murders. So in terms of the location of the murders, Napa Valley was a very safe place to live. In the 2 years prior to 2004, there hadn't been a single homicide. It's mainly known for its wine and wineries and beautiful scenery. Everyone hears Napa Valley and thinks of wine, I think.
Yeah, I feel like we've got a similar few areas here, like the Barossa Valley and the Hunter Valley, like, some rural areas, some beautiful restaurants, quite affluent, like a nice area to live where things like this generally didn't happen and probably still don't happen to the extent that they happen in other places.
Yeah. So online data indicates that it remains a safe place. The Napa crime rate is 22% lower than the national average, and the population in 2004 was around 75,000 people. So Leslie, Adriane, and a third woman named Lauren Meanza decided to move to Napa Valley to focus on their careers. Some background into the people involved. Lauren was an accomplished athlete and she had a political science degree. Adriane, she was born on December 30th, 1977. Her family said that she was a student athlete and was involved in the Girl Scout movement. She played volleyball, softball, and loved volunteering for charity. She was employed as a civil engineer with the city's sanitation district. She was originally from Calistoga, which is around 45 minutes away from Napa, and she was said to enjoy living a quiet life. She had plans to visit her sister in Australia. She was dating a man named Christian at the time of her death. She'd survived a near-fatal car crash around 1994, and after the accident, she got a scholarship to California Polytechnic, and that's where she completed her degree. So Lauren and Adriane decided to become roommates when they rented a house in the 2600 block of Dorset Street. On the day they moved in, Adriane's friend Ben Katz helped them out, and her other friends named Lily and Lily's fiance, Eric Copple, also went to the Dorset Street home for an impromptu housewarming. Adriane and Lily were very close, and they were planning to go to Australia together. They also enjoyed going to the gym together, and some reports indicate that they were co-workers. Lily would later speak to the media and spoke about Adriane's car accident and how they commemorated the anniversary of it. Lily said, "We went out and took the day off work and celebrated her 10th anniversary of what she used to call the day she was supposed to die."
So she'd overcome a lot of adversity. She was, going ahead with her life. She'd gotten her degree. Like she almost died in a car accident, and she still managed to do all these amazing things before she died at such a young age.
Mm-hmm. So later in the summer of 2004, Leslie, a former beauty queen from South Carolina who worked as a public relations specialist, became their third roommate. Leslie had been raised by her single mother and decided to make the move to California when her mother moved to Berkeley. Her mother remembered her saying, "She was spoiled, she was a princess, we knew that, we adored her." When she was a little girl, she used to say she wanted to be a mother, a teacher, and a nurse, and Miss America before she was 21. Leslie had just gone through a relationship breakup and was looking for a change. She'd been offered a job as a greeter for a winery run by Francis Ford Coppola. Leslie was described as a heartbreaker and that she was known for dating multiple men at the same time. Things seemed to be going smoothly for the three women as roommates. On October 28, 2004, there was a reported argument after Leslie brought home a boyfriend. They apparently had loud sex and it bothered the other two women. This was the first time any of the three had brought a man home, and they ended up discussing the situation and created some boundaries and ground rules for situations like that going forward, and they all agreed to that.
I feel like that's kind of a random thing to include in the story, and a lot of articles about the case do include it, but I guess it was included. I've said included about 100 times, but I guess it was included just to point, like maybe as a possible motive, like maybe there was some roommate animosity because of this, and I feel like that is why it's generally included. If you're wondering like why are they talking about this random thing, I feel like that is why it was included in the earlier articles about the case.
Yeah, I feel like May's trying to set up, like, could they have been jealous of her?
Yeah.
Like, she was so beautiful and bringing home guys.
Yeah.
So on Halloween night, the three women gave candy to trick-or-treaters. All three were in bed by 11 p.m. Adriane and Leslie had upstairs bedrooms, and Lauren's was downstairs.
Again, a bit of a Moscow parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different floors.
Yeah.
Around 2 a.m., Lauren was awakened to the home's security sensor light coming on. Some reports say that she thought that one of the other women had invited a man to the home, and that's why she wasn't too worried at first. This is all very Moscow.
Yeah.
Lauren had a dog, a golden retriever named Chloe, that slept in the bedroom with her, and she recalled that the dog growled around that time. Then she heard the sound of breaking glass. She also described hearing a blood-curdling, terrified scream. Lauren warily got out of bed to investigate, and she started to go upstairs to see what was going on. I don't know if I heard a scream, I'd be like, I'll stay here and just, call the police.
Yeah, even again, with Moscow, how she heard obviously some commotion and she opened the door and saw him and shut the door. I feel like you'd be groggy and be like, what's going on? But yeah, I agree. If my roommate was screaming, I don't know, would your first instinct be to rush up and see what happened, or would you? I don't know. It's just a flight or fight reaction, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh, here comes Peep. screaming. Hi, Beep. What do you have to say? Okay. Enough out of you. Yeah, I guess you don't know what you would do in the situation when your adrenaline's running, but I'd like to think that in any situation, I'd probably not be a hero. But who knows? I can't even make a phone call, so. But I would call the police. So she got out of bed to go investigate what was going on, and she heard Adriane scream, "Please, God, help me. Somebody help me." So this is the police commander, Jeff Trondley, talking about it. He said she, Lauren, couldn't quite make out what it was, but then things started to get a little louder. She actually got up and then heard somebody coming down the stairs rapidly. Lauren stopped when she heard the heavy footsteps coming down the stairs, and she was terrified, and she ran out of the back door into the backyard where she went and hid. She would later say that she heard the sound of someone climbing out a window and fleeing the scene. Adriane was still screaming for help, so Lauren went back inside and tried to call 911. The home's cordless phone wouldn't work. Lauren went to check on her roommates and found a bloody mess. Leslie lay in a pile of clothes, and she was unconscious with stab wounds all over her upper body. The pool of blood that she lay in was around 2 inches deep.
That is
That's
very
a lot.
deep. Like, usually in a scene like that, there would be blood on the ground, but a 2-inch deep pool, that is a lot of blood.
Yeah. Adriane was behind Leslie on a bed. She was unable to speak and was bleeding badly. Lauren has said that she realized both women were either dead or dying. She ran to her car, scared that the intruder may come back. Lauren called 911 from her car.
This is 911 emergency. What are you reporting? Oh my God, we got attacked. Who attacked you? I don't know. You don't know who attacked you? Is that your home? Yeah, I don't know what to do. One unconscious, she was down, and then the other one was bleeding, but she was saying, "Help me, please help me." I don't know what to do. I'm driving around. Wait, you're not back in the house? No, I got in my car and left. I don't know what to do.
A police officer was patrolling nearby and arrived at the house quickly, but he was too late. Leslie and Adriane were dead. More than 20 officers scoured the area looking for anyone suspicious. Blood had been left behind by the intruder. It was believed that he'd hurt himself on the broken glass window. Blood was also found on a wallboard and on window blinds in the house. Cigarette butts were found near the house as well. The information about this evidence was not disclosed until months after the murder. DNA testing indicated that the saliva on the butts came from a Caucasian male. The brand was Camel Turkish Gold. Police would eventually determine that the DNA from the blood matched the saliva found on the butts. So they know that basically the person who did this is a Caucasian male. So I guess that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
71 pieces of evidence were collected from the home. It's like, these people are so addicted to smoking cigarettes, you couldn't wait till you get further away from the scene. I feel like you hear about this, like, oh, they found a cigarette butt near the scene.
I feel like now it'd be more likely to be a vape. Like, it wouldn't be a cigarette anymore. It'd be someone with a vape, and they wouldn't be leaving it behind.
Yeah, they won't be dropping their vape.
Yeah.
The murders marked the first double homicide in the area since 1998. An investigation determined that the murderer had forced open the kitchen window to gain access to the home. He then went upstairs to attack both of the women and stabbed them repeatedly. Leslie was attacked and killed in her sleep. Adriane must have heard the commotion in the bedroom and went to see what was going on. Then she was attacked. This is why both women were found in the same location of the home. So Adriane went to go check on Leslie, and that's how they were both in the same bedroom. Adriane had bruising on her body and defensive cuts on her hands. Luckily for Lauren, he didn't attempt to go into any of the downstairs rooms of the home, and he left the home by breaking a window and had left behind some of his own blood. The FBI was called in to help. Within days of the murders, a $100,000 reward had been established for information leading to an arrest and conviction of the murderer. Women in the area were panicked. Many young single women worked at the wineries and tourist venues in the area. Police said that they believed the killer would have been known to one or both of the victims. Napa Police Chief Jeff Trondley said, "We want the public to have heightened awareness of any new injuries or change in behavior, such as missed work, unplanned vacations, events not attended, or any unusual activity." So there's some commentary from people who lived in the area or knew people who were neighbors. So one man named William Bevins said, "My daughter lives right next door. She's traumatized, and so am I. She was ready to move until she spoke with the chaplain and others in the neighborhood." Another neighbor named Rosemary Jones said of the three women, they were all really nice and very family-oriented. Another neighbor named Lee Shaporis said, she and her 2-year-old daughter rang the doorbell of the woman's residence on Halloween. The young woman wearing jeans and gray sweatshirts. They were all wearing jeans and gray sweatshirts.
Maybe they had like a Halloween sweatshirt or something going on.
She said, the young woman wearing jeans and gray sweatshirts seemed happy and were having fun. And she said that they had made trick-or-treat bags to hand out to all the children. She said, their home is laid out like ours, where you have to walk through the house to get to the stairwell. Whoever did this, it seems, would have had to be very intent. Another neighbor who lives a few houses down said, it's a very quiet, sort of leave it to beaver kind of neighborhood, where people wave to each other and walk their dogs. So police looked into friends and former/current boyfriends of the women and tried to determine why they were targeted. Napa Police Commander Andy Lewis said, we're trying to get more history on the three roommates, who were their friends, co-workers, and associates, to see if there's a possible connection. We want to see if it's something more than a stranger who entered the house. Adriane had been dating a man named Christian Lee, and he was looked into very early on in the investigation. Police went to his home in the middle of the night and got him out of bed. Christian said, I was fast asleep, and I opened the door, and about five detectives jumped backwards. He said officers asked him if he had any weapons in the home. And he said, I said I had one, and I asked if I could get it for them. And they all said, no, just point to where it is. Police seized a knife, his bed sheets, clothing, and samples of his blood, and he was taken in for questioning. Christian told police that he had seen Adriane on the night of the murders. He said that she'd gone to his house but had to leave, but left around 10 p.m. to go back to her own. He also told police that they had been arguing recently and their relationship was rocky. Adriane wanted Christian to make a commitment to their relationship, and he was reluctant to. She recently told Christian that she'd met another man and that if he was not willing to commit to her, she'd find someone else. Christian remained a suspect in the case until DNA results from the blood found at the scene cleared him. His DNA was not a match, and nothing else tied him to the scene. I would have been a little nervous if I was Christian.
Imagine just obviously a bit of a spoiler, obviously Christian had nothing to do with it, but imagine just waking up in the night to 5 police rampaging through your house and you'd be like, what is going on?
Yeah, and take you for questioning and taking blood samples, and then you're like, yeah, we were fighting a lot. I'd be like, ah. 2 of Leslie's friends spoke to the media about men that she was dating. They said she was dating a man named Bo, as well as an older man that they would not name. The 2 friends, their names are Katie and Vanessa, said that the older man saw some flowers that Bo had sent Leslie and was furious. They said he had this very dark, evil gaze. I'll never forget his eyes, ever. A lot of people being just thrown right under the bus. And another one of Leslie's oldest friends said he was jealous. I said, get rid of him.
So the Napa police searched through Leslie's computer and they found an email that interested them. It was from an old boyfriend that she'd met in Alaska when she was 20. So she was 26 at the time she died. So, 6 years ago. The email was from a man named Aaron Davis, and he spoke to the media later. He said, she was the perfect woman. I mean, she's everything that I was looking for and then some. He said that he proposed, but Leslie had turned him down, and they had broken up more than 5 years before the murders, but Aaron had recently tried to contact her. He said, I was going to marry that girl. There's other women out there, but there's not another Leslie. So they looked into, all these type of things, basically anyone who had come into contact with the women, especially, I guess, romantic interests. So police interviewed 1,300 people, but they kept coming to dead ends. That seems like a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people usually conduct, but 1,300 is a lot.
Mhm.
Authorities say that they collected 218 voluntary biological samples from men who had had some form of prior contact with the victim. So anyone, men who they worked with, men who they were involved with, but none of these samples matched the DNA found at the scene. So Adriane's friend Lily, who we spoke about earlier, spoke about her frustration about the killer not being quickly caught. She said someone must know something, and she said that she believed his behavior had to have been obvious to anyone who knew him. And she said that she hoped in the struggle Adriane had at least hurt the killer. Lily also said that everyone had a theory. She said there was talk about the girls, they were doing drugs, maybe they owed someone money. I feel like this is weird for someone who's such a close friend. Like I wouldn't be out there giving my theories, to the media about one of why my best friends might have been killed for drugs or something like that. I just feel like it's a weird crossover. Anyway. So Lily also spoke about the deaths of her friends. She said, I went to the viewing of her body, which is Adriane. It looks like she fought pretty hard. She had a lot of bruising, a lot of cuts on her hands, and Adriane hated turtlenecks, hated wearing them, would not wear them, but she was wearing one in the casket for obvious reasons. Again, such personal information, unnecessary, but anyway, it'll become even more interesting soon. Lauren, who was the surviving roommate, was obviously terrified for her safety after the murders. Despite this, she agreed to appear on America's Most Wanted and some other programs to talk about her experience. She asked that her face be hidden, and I have seen in some older reports too, they didn't mention her surname, but it's out there, so I'm assuming now, she's all right with it. But she asked that her face be hidden and said that she hoped that someone viewing the show would see this segment and it might jog a memory from that night. She said, I was in my bed and I just opened up my eyes and realized something is not quite right. And then I heard a scream. I remember thinking I need to get out, that there was a person up there that may come for me. I just kept saying, oh my God, oh my God. She says she jumped out of her bed and stood outside her door listening, and then she heard the killer running down the stairs. She said, I was terrified. My gut told me to go out the back. I mean, it was the closest way anyway. I remember thinking I'm opening up the door for this guy to follow me out. So 11 months after the murders, police released information about the cigarette butts that were found at the scene. So until this point, I don't think the public had been made aware that there were cigarette butts found at all. Maybe they knew about the 70 plus pieces of evidence, but they didn't know what was actually found. And they made information about the cigarette brand public. Police said they believe the perpetrator may have been a chain smoker who stood outside the home awaiting the opportunity to carry out the attacks. After the information about the cigarette butts were revealed to the public, Eric Copple, who we mentioned earlier, this is Lily's partner, the friend Lily's partner, wrote to his parents and told them that he was planning to end his life as he had been involved in the murders. In the note, which hasn't been made public, so we're not entirely sure what the contents were, he alluded to being jealous about Adriane and Lily's friendship. So we mentioned Eric earlier in the episode. He attended the housewarming party for the women when they moved into the house, and he was with Adriane's best friend, Lily. Lauren, the roommate, remembered at the same time that Eric was writing this letter that he had smoked the brand of cigarettes that had just been made public, and she called police to tell them. So police, after this, tried to contact both Eric and Lily, and they were unable to. 1 month after the cigarette info went public, Eric's family convinced him to turn himself into the police, and he arrived at the police station with Lily and his parents. He was interviewed by detectives for 5 hours, and authorities would later tell the media that he had made statements that they viewed as a confession. Eric was charged with 2 counts of felony murder with special circumstances that made him eligible for the death penalty, which was 2 murders committed in the same time frame, as well as murder committed by the use of a knife. So police looked more into how Eric had known the victims. He had worked for an engineering firm that had the Napa Sanitation District as a client, and that's where Adriane had worked for 3 years at the time she died. Eric and Lily had been having relationship difficulties at the time of the murders. They were engaged and they broke up and they cancelled their initial wedding plans. They were going to get married in Hawaii and they cancelled all that. When they called off the wedding, that was when Lily and Adriane had made the plans to travel to Australia to visit Adriane's sister. According to forensic files, on the night of Halloween 2004, Eric and Lily had argued about their relationship at a party. They'd gone to the party separately, but they'd had an argument there that night. After the murders, the couple would reconcile and they got married 3 months after the women died. Lily said, we'd been together almost 8 years now. It was time to go ahead and get married. And I've read some articles that say basically they realised life was too short after the murders, so they decided to go ahead and get married. On their wedding day, Lily said she couldn't get beyond the fact that there had been no arrest in Adriane's murder. She said someone must know something. Somebody would have had to notice their friend acting strange or had bruises. It doesn't seem like someone could walk away from it acting fine. Adriane's mother even attended the wedding of Lily and Eric. She said that she was stunned when she found out that Eric has been arrested. She said, I never felt he was dangerous and I never felt a sinister vibe from him. Eric had attended the funerals of both of the women. The media interviewed some acquaintances of Eric and some had different opinions of him as opposed to Adriane's mother. He had been described as unfriendly and inconsiderate, and one neighbour called him an odd duck, but everyone who knew Eric agreed that he was a chain smoker. On October 14th, 2005, so almost a year after the murders, Eric pled not guilty to all charges. His preliminary hearing was set for November 2005, but it was delayed several times. Police have said that Lily had no idea that Eric was involved in the murders and that she wouldn't be charged with anything. They were asked about a motive at the time, and the district attorney said, we are still trying to understand what led up to this tragedy. Although the motive is a human interest side of the story, it is not an element of the crime. Sometimes people do unthinkable things and we never know why. Preliminary hearing finally got underway in May 2006. Lauren spoke in court about the events of that night. The Napa detective Todd Schulman described how investigators had found a small area of blood by the broken kitchen window, and they'd also found 2 cigarette butts in the yard. Details of what Eric told police in his apparent confession and questioning also came out in court. He said that he knew he had killed them, but he didn't remember any details. He said he had gone to the party that we mentioned where he'd argued with Lily and that he was drunk. He said Lily had driven him home and he'd passed out. He said he woke up later that night and got a knife and some zip ties and he drove to the women's house. He told police that he didn't know why he'd taken the items or why he'd gone to the house. Eric said that he'd smoked a cigarette near the garage and that's when the sensor light had come on, and that's the light that the other roommate Lauren had seen. He said he used the knife to pry open a window and he went into the house and went into Adriane's bedroom. He said that he laid down on a pile of clothing in the room, but Adriane woke up and turned on the light and that startled Eric. He said he jumped onto the bed and that she thought he'd hit him in the face because he'd blacked out. He said he later heard sounds coming from the other bedroom and he went in there. He said his eyes had been closed during the whole time and that he didn't remember attacking anyone. But he did say he ditched the knife and burned his clothing in his backyard when he got home and that he didn't remember anything else. So very convenient. He remembers being there, but he doesn't remember doing anything.
I think it's like, I don't remember anything, but I remember doing this, and this.
I remember driving and getting the knife and the zip ties.
But
and
I don't remember anything else.
Yeah. So Eric's attorneys didn't deny that the DNA belonged to him or that he'd been there that night, but they presented a mental illness defense and suggested that they were planning some type of diminished capacity defense. They also said that Eric was depressed and suicidal at the time of the murders. The prosecution argued that the murders had been carried out with preparation and surveillance, as indicated by him standing there smoking the cigarettes kind of while he waited for his chance to go in, and that they were not carried out by a half-drunk person who stumbled across the scene randomly. So after the preliminary hearing, Eric's attorneys worked with the family members of the victims and they worked out a plea deal to ensure that the families didn't have to undergo an arduous legal process. On December 6, 2006, Eric pled guilty to the murders of Leslie and Adriane. He ended up admitting that he did plan the murders and that he did lay in wait outside the house that night. He went on to say, I cannot fathom an explanation for my sinful deeds, the terrible agony inflicted upon a great number of people. My relationship with Lily was in jeopardy and it was crashing. It was like it all fertilized the seed of anger in my heart. There was rage inside of me. If only I had listened to those who pleaded with me to get the help I needed. So Adriane's mother spoke in court about the extent of her daughter's injuries, and she said, my baby never wore a turtleneck sweater in her life, and yet she had to be buried in one, and it still could not hide the extent of her wounds. Lily also spoke in court in support of her husband, and apparently I wish I could find video of this because it's an older case. It's very, very hard to find clips and video and transcripts, but I would have loved to have heard what she said. But she spoke of him at the sentencing as someone who had a gentler side. In exchange for the plea, he received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. He agreed to waive his rights to the appeal at all levels and to never speak to the media. If Eric ever violates the deal, his sentence could be reviewed and he could get the death penalty, and he would also be liable for $10 million in wrongful death benefits to family members. So as we mentioned, the contents of the note that Eric wrote have never been disclosed, and a motive for the murders has never been totally confirmed. Obviously, he mentioned the jealousy about the relationship between Lily and Adriane, and I guess he was under a lot of stress at the time. His relationship with Lily seemed to be not going very well. So that is as close to people have come to a confirmed motive. There is a book, though, about the case called Nightmare in Napa, The Wine Country Murders by Paul LaRosa, and he mentioned that Eric's family moved around a lot because his father was in the military, and that he maybe felt desperate for a sense of stability, and that was going to be taken away from him if Lily went with Adriane to Australia. That is a possible motive. The book also discusses an alternate theory that Leslie was the real threat to the relationship, and it was theorized that Eric had made a pass at Leslie, and he was afraid that she would tell Lily about it. This is just all speculation. None of this has ever been proven, just two kind of other theories that were put out there. So Eric is serving his sentence at the Pleasant Valley State Prison in California. After all these years, 20 years later, Lily has still remained married to Eric. She still lives in the Napa Valley, and Adriane's mother, Arlene, has stayed close with Lily over the years. So I don't know. I don't know if I would be staying with someone. It's wild. But, I guess till death do us part, but an interesting outcome for Lily and Eric.
I feel like maybe she's just ignorance is bliss, and he's just going with I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I did it. I just had a psychotic break or whatever. I don't know.
Crazy. So Leslie's mother has spoken about the loss of her daughter, and I just wanted to include this because I thought it was such a gracious way to think about the situation, and I don't know if I could ever be so gracious personally, but she says, when you lose a child, it's like a nuclear bomb has dropped. Your world becomes a barren landscape where nothing grows. It's as if all your landmarks are gone and you don't know where you are anymore. It's taken me a very long time to find my way. She went on to speak about why the families agreed to reach the plea deal with Eric. She said, by the time of the sentencing hearing, my sons no longer felt they wanted the death penalty. We made it clear to the prosecution that we didn't want to endure a public trial, and if they could work out a plea agreement, then we would prefer it. At first, when we went to court, there were two sides, and I couldn't look at Eric's family across the room, but once we started talking about how we could produce the most compassionate outcome for everyone while still getting justice and protecting society, the mood shifted. After the media left the court, Rosemary whispered, Kathy, do you want to meet Eric's mother? I was absolutely terrified, but when I saw her coming towards me, I knew I needed to. She was trembling, and she was more terrified than me. I was stunned by how similar we looked, and I thought, oh my God, I'm her. Then we just embraced, and there was such relief and compassion in that embrace. I've been in the dark for years, and it's getting clearer now. Lots of things in life are senseless. There's so much we can't explain, but we need to be able to love the questions. That's such a profound and gracious way to talk about your daughter being murdered, being able to have compassion for the murderer's family, because they are in essentially the same position. They've both lost children. Eric will never be out of jail, but it's still just such a gracious way to frame it.
Sometimes I hear like that statement, and there's like other ones we've talked about over the years. I'm like, man, I just must be a bitter, unforgiving bitch, because like I don't think I could ever.
And to be fair, like I feel like she made these statements quite a number of years. Like I believe it was around 9 years after the murder, so she had time to grieve and ponder and reflect. So this obviously, like, but then still they reached the plea deal not long after the murders. That was still a short time frame for her to accept and be able to have some compassion for other people. So, yeah, it doesn't seem like, as we mentioned, Eric is never able to appeal. I don't feel like there really can be any other updates in this story. There may be some new articles coming out to mark the 20-year anniversary of the murders. Just such a horrible, heinous, random, like I know, when I say random, I mean it just wasn't really brought on by anything than Eric's crazy jealousy, it seems. Like it wasn't.
It seems like there's still no like real explanation.
No.
There's no like, did something happen? It can't just be because he was jealous of their friendship, unless clearly he's like a psycho, but that's it. I don't know.
There is a bunch of Reddit discussions with people, discussing other possible motives, because it does seem like a very brutal and a very personal crime. I guess the theory about Leslie being the target could hold some weight. Like it does seem like it's just such an overkill crime for someone who was jealous of his girlfriend and their friendship. But yeah, we will likely never know anymore.
Yeah, I'd more so believe it was because, Leslie was the beautiful
Yeah, beauty queen.
heartbreaker one. Maybe it was some, like, just jealous, like, he wanted her but couldn't have her type thing. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, maybe like along the lines of his relationship with Lily was over, so he tried to make a pass at Leslie. She rejected him, and then that just, he just lost it.
Yeah, it just seems like there's definitely more of the story that we'll never know because, he doesn't remember.
Yeah, and he's also not allowed to talk about it.
I can't believe Lily's still with him all this time.
Yeah, I did like her name's out there. Obviously, the police have said that she didn't do anything wrong. I find her statements interesting about how surely I'm paraphrasing now, but we mentioned them earlier. But surely the person who would have noticed the bruises, or there would be something different about the person who committed these murders, and then it's just she said all that, and then apparently still didn't know. Like, I understand they weren't together. They didn't appear to be living together at the time. It seems like a very quick, brutal attack. So maybe he, any injuries he had were minor, could have been explained by, whatever.
Yeah, just seems like there's still a lot of questions, but that's all. That's all there is.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, it has been brought up a lot lately, especially over the last few years in regards to the Moscow murders. The one flatmate survived, was found on a different floor. The murderer didn't approach the third flatmate, obviously there was more victims in the Moscow murders, but the murderer didn't approach the flatmate in both cases. The remaining flatmate saw the murderer, or at least heard the murderers in both cases. There are a lot of similarities, but I feel like they're easily explainable just due to the layouts of the homes on different levels.
A dog.
A dog.
Involved.
Yeah. I just feel like I don't think anyone is insinuating that the cases are linked, because they're definitely not, I will say, but just some interesting comparisons, and it's a very similar case in terms of
It'll be interesting to know if Brian Kohberger had known anything about this case.
Yeah, where was he
in his criminal studies?
No, true, actually.
That's what I mean, like if he studied it at all, or heard about it. I think it's probably just by chance it's kind of similar, but
yeah, and I still feel like, obviously we don't want to go too on a Moscow tangent, but I feel like Kaylee was probably the main target. I feel like maybe Adriane was the main target in this one. It just the similarities are just that, similarities and a coincidence.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing crazy unique about either of them where you'd be like, oh my God, like Brian Kohberger must have heard about this case and copied it. It's really like a guy broke into a house and stabbed girls that were roommates to death.
Yeah. And I feel like too, there's some equally as sloppy parts of the crime. Like Eric left the cigarettes, Brian did the 3-point turn in the driveway or the road or whatever. Like there's if he was picking a crime to study, I feel like this would not be the one to try and emulate, because there was a lot of mistakes made by Eric in this one.
Yeah, that's true too. I guess that's it though.
That's it, yeah.
All right, well that is it for this episode. Everything will be on the blog, as always, truecrimesocietyblog.com. Make sure you're following us on Instagram, True Crime Society. We're posting updates and things on there. And if you want to follow our personal accounts, mine is StephSum_, Olivia's TCS Olivia, and you can see what we're up to. Like we mentioned at the start of the episode, we do have a Patreon. If you want to check out, if you want some more content from us, we do weekly bonus episodes, so it's like 2 episodes a week plus 0 ads on any of the episodes, and earlier release on the main regular episodes. Plus we have some chats going on, like right now we have specifically a Delphi trial chat, so we all send the updates there and different things from reporters and talk about it, which I've been enjoying because, like I said, Delphi is one that I followed forever, and none of my actual family and friends care about it. And I'm like trying to talk about it every day. So, and Olivia's not awake during the day, so it's nice to have other people.
By the time I get up, the trial's over for the day.
Yeah, and I'm like tired at that point. So it's nice to have other people who are invested to chat about it with. So check us out on Patreon. leave us some nice comments, reviews, all those things. If you could share it to your Instagram stories or share the podcast wherever, it's a big help to us, and we greatly appreciate that. But that is it for this episode. Thank you guys for listening. Stay safe, especially during Halloween festivities. If you're listening on Halloween or earlier in the day, stay safe out there. Look out for each other. Trick or treat, whatever y'all do these days. Just have fun and be safe. Thanks for listening, guys. Peace out.
Bye.